Most people are not afraid of dying. They are afraid of something quieter than that. They are afraid of reaching the end of their life and realizing they never actually lived it. Not really. They did what was expected. They became what was asked of them. They stayed inside the shape that other people drew around them, and they called it a life. I know this because I did it. For years, I lived a life that looked right from the outside and felt completely wrong from the inside. This is about what it took to change that, and about the one thing standing between most people and the life they actually want: fear. Not the fear of dying, the fear of living differently. I grew up in Lebanon, a country so beautiful it will take your breath away, and so fractured it will break your heart. I grew up in a house where seriousness mattered, obedience mattered, being what others needed you to be mattered. Joy was suspicious, curiosity was a distraction, and I learned very early not to trust what I felt. I remember being 6 years old sitting at the dining table and discovering that if you pressed your fork against a pea, it would shoot across the table like a tiny cannonball. It was physics, it was comedy, it was a miracle. And the response was very quietly, very finally: be serious and eat your food. I have thought about that moment many times because it was the first time I understood that my joy was inconvenient, that the word had a shape, and I was expected to fit inside it. When I was 11, my parents sent us to boarding school in Switzerland. The Alps, clean air, order, silence. After Beirut, cleanliness itself felt like mercy. And there, for the first time in my life, I heard something that stopped me completely: the sound of hooves. Every second day, a group of riders passed through the school grounds, moving together through nature. Huge horses, leather boots, the rhythm of hooves on earth. Something in me answered that sound before I had words for it. I was terrified to ride, but I began. And for the first time, somebody built my confidence, slowly, without force. I fell in love, and I understood even then, at 11, the difference between a life you are given and a life you feel called toward. Here is what I have come to understand about fear. The fear that stops most people is not the fear of danger, it is the fear of disapproval, the fear of being different, the fear of being wrong, the fear of what people will say when you stop following the script they assumed you would follow forever. The fear is not loud, it does not arrive as a scream. It arrives as a quiet voice that says, "This is not practical. This is not what people like us do. Who do you think you are?" And most people listen to that voice, not because they are weak, but because they were taught to, very early, before they had the words to question it. I followed the script. I studied law. I became a lawyer. I stood in a courtroom defending cases that felt like lies, wearing a necktie that felt like a noose. Everyone around me told me I had made it. My soul told me I had lost myself. Every morning I drove to work and watched the sky through the windscreen, the clouds moving, birds cutting across the air, a world that was breathing outside the glass. And I sat in that car knowing, with a certainty I could not explain, that something in me was dying quietly inside a life that looked completely correct. Fear does not look always like fear. Sometimes it looks like obedience. Sometimes it looks like sensibility. And sometimes it looks like a very impressive life that belongs to someone else entirely. I left law. I went back to the land, back to horses, back to the sound that had stopped me at 11 years old. I built a horse club in Lebanon countryside, and for 19 years, I taught people to ride. I trained horses. I ran trail rides through mountains. I worked with my hands in the earth every single day. People thought I was abandoning a serious life. I thought I was finally beginning one. Then I found kitesurfing, then paragliding, then motorcycles on open roads at dawn. Every single time I stepped towards something that frightened me, something opened. Not just in the world, in me. The kite that dragged me across a beach in Egypt taught me that holding on tighter is sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do. The paraglider that carried me into a thermal I could not escape taught me that the same force lifting you can become the force that holds you. The horse taught me that you cannot fake calm. A horse feels your fear before you do. There is no performance in a saddle, only what is real. And slowly across the years, I stopped being afraid of the wrong things. I'm not telling you to leave your job or move countries or take up kitesurfing. I'm telling you something simpler. The life you want is already inside you. It has been there since before the world told you how to be or who to be. The question is not whether you are brave enough to find it. The question is whether you are willing to stop mistaking other people's comfort for your own truth. Fear is not your enemy, it is a compass. Every time you feel that quiet resistance, that voice that says, "This is not practical, this is not sensible, this is not what people like us do," that voice is pointing at something that belongs to you. The people who live the lives they actually want are not the people who had no fear. They are the people who stopped waiting for the fear to leave before they began. This is part of the word behind my upcoming book, How to Lose a Life You Love. It is a memoir about conditioning, collapse, and what it actually takes to reclaim a life that feels genuinely yours. I have released the first chapter for free. The link is below. Start there, not because it will give you answers, but because it might help you hear the quiet question underneath your own life. Is this really mine?